Okay, we are going to jump back in here, and I have let this painting completely dry, a good day just to be sure, but a few hours is probably enough. And before I get any more paint on it, I'm going to do some of the outlining that we see here in the inspiration image. And we're going to do that using a straight edge. We don't want to freehand this, and we're going to use a thin line, ultrafine Sharpie permanent marker. And this is just a good marker for making sure that it's not going to bleed when it gets wet later on, that it's going to stay put. So I'm essentially going to just focus on the building itself. Really, those are the things that are primarily outlined in this inspiration image. So here we go. You can continue to use your vanishing point for this, but you've really already done the legwork. You know where those lines are supposed to be. If you're confident where they ended up, then you really can basically rely on the line that you drew. So that means you don't necessarily have to go back and pay that much attention to the vanishing point if you're paying attention to your line, and if you're confident that the line that you drew was accurate. We do want to be careful now at this point. Make sure you're not drawing through a tree or drawing through, some other detail that wouldn't be visible at this point. And there's really not a right or wrong order to this. I kind of work in series where I'm doing a bunch of verticals, and then I'm doing some orthogonals and kind of hopping back and forth. And like I said, there's really not a right or a wrong order to do this. But save yourself some trouble by doing several verticals at one time or several orthogonals at one time, so that you can save the effort of moving that straight edge around. And I'm making a point not to go through these white striped areas at this point. I want to try to leave those intact. Even if the pencil line did that, we don't necessarily want our pen line to do that. And so hopefully you can kind of see how I'm doing that. And of course I don't want to draw a line through my car. So just pay attention to those areas. When in doubt, just don't make a mark, and then you can always come back in and add it later if you find, oops, I guess I did want a mark there after all. Okay. Oops, got away from me. When you are drawing a series like this, whether it's windows or these little squares, again, save yourself the trouble and do them all at one time rather than drawing those independently. You've already got your straight edge right where you want it, so do those in a series. I'm just going to go faster and probably more accurate also. A clear straight edge is helpful because it just makes it easier for you to see where you're placing your mark. So I'm really down now to the door. I do have a little bit of the corner visible there, and then some work on the windows as well. You can see how this can give it a really nice finished look, and it just is appropriate to our inspiration image where she has used this outlining technique. And if some simplifications take place along the way, that's okay too. When in doubt, if you don't know where a line should be, think back to those orthogonals, think back to whether it's a vertical or what that line might be as you're making some of those decisions. You want to try to be thorough here. You don't want to have to come back and do this once you've got the paper wet again. You will have to let it dry entirely in order to come back with a marker. You don't want to use the marker on wet paper. It is not going to work out so good. Okay. A few more orthogonals and we'll have these windows done. And you know, this is a handmade object. Should not necessarily look like it was done on a computer or by a machine. So, you know, if every once in a while you get a dot or someplace where you didn't mean for it to, or the lines don't perfectly match up, you know, that's not the end of the world. Of course, we want to try to do a thorough job, but it's okay if it looks like it was made by a person. Make sure you show where the bottom of that tree is. So we're really just focusing on any of those little details that would be pretty impossible to do with paint. If it's a thicker black line, that's something like around the trees and whatnot, we can do that with paint, but we wanted to really try to get those lines that are just too precise to try to do with a paintbrush. Okay?